Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me in the cooking show. I thank IFC for giving me this opportunity. My name is Kumar Iyer, and I own the Indian restaurant Rangoli in Manassas. We were earlier in Chantilly, moved there. I've been in the industry for over 28 years. I got hotel management background from India. And today we are going to cook some chana masala. Chana, or is also known as chickpea or garbanzo bean, is a very popular grain and used extensively in India, and I think in the Mediterranean, and even it's grown in Mexico. The flour is used in making falafel, and it's a primary ingredient in hummus also. But I picked chana masala today because it could be an entree by itself. You can have it with rice or roti, or you could substitute as a side dish for your main dinner. So we have all the ingredients here. If you have not got a copy of the ingredients and the recipe, you can log into the website. It has the details. We have all the ingredients lined up, and let's start cooking, right? To start with, I always like to get my onions chopped, and today, instead of preparing anything, I just thought I will cook everything live in front of you so you can see how it's done. And as it cook along, I might share some tips or best practices that I use through my cooking career. So when I'm cutting onions, I like to just cut one side and hold on to the knot and not cut the knot, so that when I actually chop it, and that's what this recipe is asking for, chopped onions, it holds them together. I'm going to show you how that's done. The laptop here. So we have the onion here, and the best way to chop it is go all the way down, turn it around, and then that way the knot holds them together. If you want it finer, you can make an additional incision and just chop it through. And then you can just throw this away. The same with the other one. There we go. We have our finely chopped onions. For cooking, I like to use this yellow or the white onions and not the red onions, because to me, I use red onions more when the recipe calls for eating it raw. We use a lot of onions and tomatoes in our chaat items like bel puri or chaat papdi, and for those, I like to use the red onions. So here we have a chopped onion. So I'm going to go over here and start cooking. Gas is turned on. Pouring some oil. Just because we're going to be cooking here, and as you can see, I really hope you do not have to see me while the cooking is being done, so we can actually focus on the pan. And I got my cutting board here, so because the recipe is asked for 2 slit green chilies along with it, I'm going to do that. Have my green chili slit and ready. Slitting them this much is good. And I like to, you can even chop the green chilies, but I like to slit and put it in the recipe. So if somebody doesn't like green chilies, they can take it off if it comes in a plate, versus chopping it and biting into a big piece and getting a too spicy part of the food. Our recipe also asked for some chopped ginger garlic, which I have got it ready here. When the oil is hot, you add a teaspoon of cumin seeds. As you would all know, Indian cooking requires a lot of, we use a lot of spices. Turmeric especially is a primary ingredient that we use in most of our Indian cooking of all curries. We use mustard seeds. And then we also use whole garam masala. I have them here. This is cinnamon seeds, there's bay leaf, there's cloves, cardamom, the star anise. This together constitutes the whole garam masala. But today we will be using garam masala powder. When we roast all these spices and make a powder, it's called the garam masala powder. The whole of all these spices put together is known as the garam masala. I don't know if you can see it here, but when the cumin kind of gets dark, I would say brown, just roast them. At that stage, we would be adding the ginger garlic. You want to make sure that the cumin is roasted but not burnt. I'm going to use a tablespoon of ginger garlic paste on it. And let's stir it up. I hope this recipe is, this style of cooking is fine. So you can actually see, like it's again said, I think it's more important for us to see how the ingredient gets, the dish gets cooked rather than you looking at me, right? So we're going to go ahead and drop this chopped onion in it and the 2 slit green chilies. Here too, you got to remember when you add the ginger garlic that you roast it slightly and stir it in the pan. The idea is for all the oil in the pan to get the ginger garlic flavor into it. And now we have added onions. So we're going to roast the onions. While the onions are going to be roasted, I'm going to chop my tomatoes. One thing about cooking that I've learned, like I said, as I'm cooking along, I'm going to probably pass along a lot of tips, is when you're cooking 3 or 4 dishes, if you're making a rice or roti, one or 2 sabzis, I typically do not like to chop everything and keep it already, which is a great idea. But actually, to me, the time that you spend in getting the ingredients ready, you could also be cooking in the back. I am the kind of chef who likes to do everything and use the time optimally, so we could be cooking together and getting the ingredients ready. Of course, there's one school of thought, and I think I agree with that too, where many people say that, you know, when you're cooking, you get too confused and there's too much going on at one time and you really wouldn't want to do that. And I agree with that too. But if you know what you're doing, then I think we can all agree that we can save a bunch of time by doing by multitasking. So we have our chopped tomatoes here. I'm going to go back to my pan. To show you, the onions are still being roasted. Like I said, instead of just wasting for the onion to be roasting and not doing anything, I decided that we should be using the time and chopping up the tomatoes. Now, I am cooking chana masala, again, as we discussed earlier. This is, to even start before that, Hinduism, we use a lot of vegetables. Hindus are primarily vegetarian, and the reason is because we believe every living organism has a soul, and you know, we shouldn't be hurting any soul, and that's why we prefer being vegetarian. Primarily, I think over 60% of Indians would be vegetarian, and even people who eat meat in India, typically there are a lot of days, like specific days of festivals when they celebrate, where they don't eat meat, like the Shravan month or the Navratri time, they don't eat meat. So I would think even non-veg people would only be eating vegetarian, being vegetarian for a good 25% time of the year. I'm sure everybody also knows, though even in India, there are meat eaters, we do not eat cow. Cow eating is taboo because we worship the cow, and you know, we revere the cow. It's considered as a god. Well, we find God in all living organisms. Cow is very sacred for us. We're still sauteing the onions. We are also cooking Chana Masala as part of a Jain religion. Now, Jainism is a part of the Hindu culture. A lot of Jains in India, where they do not believe in eating any vegetable that's grown under the ground. So they wouldn't get in ginger, garlic, onions. I think they eat ginger, but there's no onion, no garlic. Even some Jain people do not eat carrots, beetroot, potatoes, anything that's grown underground, because they feel like, when you're digging, you actually again hurt the soul of the plant. So most Jain people would not use ginger garlic. And for them, you can still make a chana masala. And what I recommend for that is follow the same recipe. Just put cumin seeds and then slit green chilies and then add chopped tomato directly into your pan. I would double the quantity of chopped tomato because you need to have a body to the chana masala at the end. Otherwise, you just don't want to be eating all chickpeas. So, increasing the quantity of tomatoes, rather substituting the onions in this recipe with tomatoes would be a Jain version of chana masala. So you got that part. So now our onions are kind of getting sauteed. You want to caramelize the onions too much because that will add a little sweetness, and there's a little after bitter taste also that we want to avoid. I think it's lightly roasted. At this point, I would like to add turmeric powder, that is. This is a half tablespoon. We want 1 tablespoon. So I'm going to add twice the quantity of the coriander powder. Coriander powder is the powder of the coriander seeds, which is also known as cilantro seeds. I've used proprietary ground coriander powder, but if you want, you can also freshly grind the coriander seeds. That gives immense flavor to the recipe. So we just want to kind of mix it in to make sure the onions don't roast unevenly and that the spices gets mixed into it. At this stage, I'm also going to add the chili powder. The chili powder that I have at home is a very, very spicy version. It's really spicy. It's called hot chili powder. So I'm using it sparingly. But what I would recommend is also getting something called Kashmiri chili powder. Now, the difference is the Kashmiri chili powder. I'll show you the packet, how it looks. This is proprietary store-bought Kashmiri chili powder. It gives a lot of color. When you're cooking, you want your dish to look nice and red or dark brown, like a real curry. I would recommend you use Kashmiri chili powder. Now that we have all the masalas in here, I'm stirring it up. You can see it. The green chilies are standing out, but it's already given the spice to the oil and to all the masala. And now they are binding together and cooking. Now at this stage, some people would, I'm sure there are a lot of cooks and there are a lot of Indians who are watching, and I want to give a tip also as I'm cooking, that we do not add garam masala. I don't like to add garam masala at this point because though it's also spice powder. Because like I mentioned earlier, we make garam masala by roasting the garam masala spices, the whole spices, and making a powder. So it's already roasted and kind of pre-cooked. So when I cook, I like to add it at the end when we're finishing a dish. So at this point, when the masalas are cooked, we're going to add the chopped tomatoes. Because the pot is really hot and the tomatoes are cold, sometimes you'll see some flames coming out of the pan, but we have a very deep dish and that's why it's looking good. And there are no flames. Now, you may also use some store-bought proprietary crushed tomato. Now, this is a canned crushed tomato, and I just want to add a tablespoon of that here. Now, this gives a nice body and a little flavor to the whole dish too. Now, you might want to remember when we were talking about the Jain cooking, that I asked you to add double the quantity of tomatoes, and that's what you should do. This is where we would be when we would do that, and not use any onion or garlic for Jane cooking. At this stage, I would like it to cook a little more so that the tomato gets the flavor of all the spices, which is also the right time to add salt. Yeah. Good. No. I just want to mention here also one thing that I've learned when cooking is about patience. You got to have the patience and wait for it to cook, so that it seeps in all the flavors and all the dishes kind of mix in together and become one part. Versus some people like to cook in a rush, and I feel that's probably sometimes I feel that's a difference between being a good cook and just cooking because you want to serve dinner to the family. As you can see here, when we know this masala is cooked, when the oil separates, when the oil starts separating from the masala, you can see at places that you can see the oil. And this means the masala is cooked. And in this case, anyway, since we want that masala flavor to go into the chickpeas also, I would be adding the chickpeas now. Now, chickpeas, as we discussed earlier, is a grain. It's a lentil. It's a pea. This pea is canned. What we have today is pre-cooked canned version. I have opened the can. It's 2 cans of 14 ounce. So we have 28 ounces of chickpeas. I already washed it and it's ready. Right. So now you saw that we've added this and it's cooking. We can increase the flame at this point, and we want to wait. Not only will the masala get cooked at this point, but all the masala is going to go into the chickpea too. I'm also going to add a cup of water. Good. And when as the chickpeas is cooking, we want to get ready with the garnish, which is the chopped cilantro. So I'm going to go ahead and start chopping the cilantro. Cilantro is a herb which is extensively used in Indian cooking. This really gives nice flavor. I know some people don't like cilantro. If you do not want it, you can avoid it. But to me, this really finishes the dish very well and makes it taste better. I'm going to go first wash my cilantro. Washing all herbs is very, very important. I've learned it the hard way. There was a time when I was in a rush and I just put the cilantro without washing, and there was so much sand in it, the whole dish had to be crushed. So we don't want to make that mistake here. So you just chop the leaves and hold it for the garnish. Now these stems, because I love cilantro so much, it's probably one of my favorite flavorful ingredient in my dish. I do not want to throw these seeds. I finely chop them, right? And already add it to my pan and let it cook here with the chana masala. As you can see, it's already coming out really well, very flavorful. I can tell you right now, it's smelling great. It is smelling great. It's going to taste awesome. Now, here is another trick that I wanted to show you. When I make chana masala, to give it a little body and to make it look more mossy and more structure, I like to put it in a mortar and pestle and just pound it just a little, maybe about 10% of them, right? We'll make it like a paste. All we're doing is just crushing them and adding it back into the pan. I don't want to waste this, so I'm going to put a little water there. I just got a little water in it. And I'm adding this also. You see this ground chickpeas? It kind of gives a little nice body. It feels like, you know, the whole chickpeas is cooked. The chickpeas, as I mentioned, I had used the canned one, but if you want, you can use the whole dry chickpeas. You just need to soak it overnight. I've been told that if you put a little pinch of soda, it kind of, you know, balloons up and looks nice. Some people even, after soaking it for a couple of hours, put it in a pressure cooker and cook it so that they get tender and nice. The idea is to get the chickpeas tender, pre-cooked style, so that you can add it to your masala and make the chana masala. The important part to know when it's done, of course, is when all the masala is cooked. And you can make out from the smell that it's really ready to go. As a chef, the right way for me to taste it is putting it on my finger. Tastes really good. It's a little spicy, but like I mentioned, I think I've used the spicy, very hot red chili powder, but if you're using a regular chili powder, I think yours is going to come out great. I think this is fantastic. Our dish has come out really nice. I'm going to chana masala is done here. I'm going to portion it. And if you remember, our chopped cilantro as the garnish. And here it is. The professional chef. I want to make sure it looks pretty. Yes, it does. You can take a picture. I do not know how many of you have been cooking along with me. This is a really simple dish to make, but it's still complex flavors. It tastes great when you serve it for your family. Use it on top of some rice, a good hot heap of basmati rice. You can make rotis. Rotis is whole wheat flour bread, or even chole. It's also called chole, and chole bhatura is a very good. Chole bhatura is quite popular in India. Bhatura is basically a white flour leavened fried bread, and chole bhatura is a great combination. So there you go, chana masala. If you have any questions?